And I would sell my Bitcoin right into this rally, sell my Bitcoin rally.
Boom, we are back at the bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit for bees, brought to you in part by your usual guests, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the people's champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the excellence of execution, and surprise, surprise, no surprise, Mrs. No Show. No show.
And we were all a no-show last week. We missed a week.
We were.
What week?
It was half term. There was kids, and I have no kids that were in school, but I still half term for me. So. We missed a week, but we're back. We're back, and weirdly, like Bitcoin just stayed the same anyway. You know, we'd had a big pump to 30K last week, and we're like, oh, right, that's going to be the top story. But then, who knows what's going to be next week? It's probably gone back down to 25, or it'll be 40. It's still 30. We just Bitcoin. We had a week off. Bitcoin had a week off, and we're back. So now the news can continue again.
It's been nice having the pump, seeing it back at a high for where it is, 70% increase for the year as well. If you were to start in 2023 from zero, you would have had an increase of 70%. Hey, who said it's too late?
Yeah. Well, so the entire market, by the way, is still down. So people have been saying, Bitcoin isn't doing its thing. It's not a hedge against inflation. It just goes up. When the stock market goes up, Bitcoin goes up. Well, the stock market's still down. Still down bad. But Bitcoin's still down bad as well. We're still like 50% down from where we were. But Bitcoin's up, like you said, 70% this year. Show me a stock that is a decent company that's up 70% this year. There isn't one. So This could be like a bit of a decoupling of Bitcoin and the stock market where people are worried about the stock market, they're worried about banks, and where they're putting their money. They're putting it into Bitcoin. We're seeing it's only tiny amounts of money at the moment, but it's showing that it isn't just the FOMO people buying Bitcoin, that stocks go up forever, property goes up forever, everything goes up. Fuck it, I'll buy a little bit of Bitcoin because that will go up as well. Like, no, everything's going down and people are losing money and they're taking money out of banks where they're putting it. It looks like there's some new people putting it into Bitcoin. So hopefully this is a nice sustainable kind of increase as well. It's going to going up quite slow, and we get
hopefully it's more adoption as well, because we do need more nation states. So, we mentioned the various countries constantly, South Africa, Argentina, those kind of countries which are absolutely fucked by people siphoning out the money, and they want a hard money in there. And you hope that India's next, because all I ever read about India now is how they're basically turning into an authoritarian government.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think they can get access to pure Bitcoin.
No, I think last I heard about India that they banned it.
Yeah, it is still banned.
Or it's just on exchanges, so you can't actually own it yourself.
Yeah, that's what I should say, is exactly that. It's on exchanges, you cannot take it off. I've got a half-decent contact who I may have mentioned before on one of the pods, and people are allowed to invest into it, and definitely looking at the history of the rupee, it makes sense. But whether or not you're actually going to own it,
But when you actually think about this, someone restricting what you can buy with your money, which you've earned, how insane is that? It's just, I just look at this, and also when you actually look at the history of money, you think, how can we have a government-backed currency? they've put prints on it before, like on gold and silver, but on a piece of paper, every time which it's happened, it's collapsed.
Mm.
I know.
It's just two absolutely insane points. Whenever I find myself thinking about Bitcoin, I think about these points. I'm like, I cannot wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense to give a stamp of authenticity to forms of money. Makes sense. You do it with rice stones. It's like, is this a real rice stone? Is this being verified by like the community that this is actually valuable? With gold, is this a bit of tungsten wrapped in gold? Like, no, this has been verified. This is the official stamp. That will make sense. But then they just went, oh, like the precious thing that stamp is on. Yeah, I was going to put it on paper now, and paper is literally infinite. But it's backed by a government, so don't worry about it. It's got the stamp. Look, the stamp's there. It says it's official. And it's got a serial number. But
it's when you have these discussions with no coiners, or even see a discussion on Twitter from a no coiner, we talk about how the money has to be backed by a government.
I know.
Why
like it's always been.
Yeah. Why the fuck do you need to be backed by a government?
Yeah, and when is a currency backed by a government lasted for hundreds of years? Like, they don't have an example because there hasn't been one. And we're 50 years into the whole globe being on a government-backed currency standard, and we're seeing where it's going. And they just think, oh no, it's always been like this. It will always be fine. They'll always have enough money to print to make all these IOUs like whole. And you just go, we're 50 years into the experiment, and if you look at all the charts, they started relatively okay, and then it's just gone like this. You think that is a sign of stability and that we're going to be okay? You're nuts.
But they can helicopter.
I've got one for us. Yeah. I've got one for us to think about as well, because naturally we've seen the rise of the BRIC nations all trying to kind of come together, China, Russia,
but the dollar's all right according to Ray, and all right according to what's his name, the Bitcoiner, the former Bitcoiner, Nick Bhatia. Yeah, the dollar's fine. What are you on about BRICS?
Well, this is it. Well, this is where I'm going with my whole kind of thesis, because we know that China hold a lot of the dollars as well, in terms of like they bought a load of bonds, and there's tension naturally between the USA and China. And you and we've read the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio, and the Changing World Order could potentially be, as we know, China as the new #1 world superpower, and also the new global reserve power. But in order for #2, China, to take out #1, America, their main consumer is America. So therefore, if they were to do that, then they'd be also hurting themselves. So where does this go?
Yeah, but it's probably, short-term pain versus long-term prosperity. So you've got to take the hit of basically bankrupting the USA by devaluing the bonds which you've got in order to finish off the USA to assume your rightful place. And at that point, then they control the world economy. So they can pretty much print what they want, and everyone follows their standard. They can mount as much debt as they want, and they end up like the US. But they've got to manage it so they don't end up like the US, who are weak.
But that's it. But that's exactly it. Once they do that, then they effectively are just writing their own death will, right?
Or they bankrupt them, flip onto a Bitcoin standard, and make sure the US are broke, and then the US are broke as shit on a Bitcoin standard as well.
Yeah, they don't die. This is like a Bitcoiner holding 2% of their wealth in fiat as an insurance policy, and 98% is in Bitcoin. And then the Bitcoin standard happens, you go, oh, aren't you gutted you lost your 2%? No, because my 98% went up by 50x. That will be what happened with China. And the whole transition, like China already preparing for it, right? So if you go back 10 years, if the transition of power had happened then, yeah, China was fucked. Because all they were is the back-end manufacturer of a load of American products. That's pretty much all they did. But over the last decade, they have been bringing out their own brands. They've been innovating on top of stuff. You know, we've seen stuff like Shein in the UK, where they're cutting out the fashion providers. They're going direct. You know, they're making their own phones. They've got their own social networks. They've got everything, right? They've got everything ready to go now. They are basically America ready to go. And if the America collapses and a lot of that stuff shuts down, China would be right there to go, here it is. We're not just the beef behind America's innovation. We do our own innovation now, and we're ready to go. So,
and they've also got lots of gold and silver in reserve, haven't they?
yeah, and then
like they've built up their supplies along with Russia.
And in the day, like if they become the world power, right? It doesn't matter how much money you lose in US dollars, because who gives a fuck about US dollars? It's all about the yen now, and guess who gets to print the yen? China.
Yeah.
So it literally, you can lose infinite dollars and it doesn't matter because you now have infinite yen, and yen's the only thing that's accepted. So
that could be the case, couldn't it? Where we've seen the US take effectively the money that Russia had and confiscate it, and naturally they could do the same to China as well.
Yeah,
dismiss the bonds.
Yeah,
and then probably increase their economy by 2%, like they have to.
Yeah,
it hurt them so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so bizarre, right? It's such a weird attack on a country, just to go, oh, because you're from that country, we're going to freeze your assets everywhere. It's such a bizarre thing to say.
Yeah,
because you just got to think, like, just imagine like bringing that down to like, not a hated country like Russia or China. Just bring it down to like the UK. Let's just say America falls out of the UK and you have some shares in Amazon or Facebook. And because a UK now, in America's eyes, is a terrorist country, we're a threat on humanity, like they're saying Russia and China are. Because of that, all UK money is now frozen if it's on US soil. So suddenly our shares in like Amazon, Facebook, whatever, will just get frozen, and not just frozen, reallocated into the companies that just held those shares. Like they just take them. Because that's what happened to the Russians. Like they own property, they own shares, they had money and gold in banks and all sorts. It just all got taken from them. And you go, well, hold on, like what was their connection to the governments? And maybe for certain individuals, you can create those ties and it all kind of makes sense. But for a lot of that money, there was no ties to government. It was just they're Russian. And it's kind of fucked up. And it's just yet another kind of scary thing about fiat and the fiat world, and the fact that if one government dislikes your government, then you lose if you've got money outside of that country. And this is another reason to obviously to use a decentralized money like Bitcoin, because it doesn't matter what government, what jurisdiction you're in. If where you are falls out of another jurisdiction that's more powerful and they choose to freeze all the assets of your people, or they sanction your people, it doesn't matter if you've got Bitcoin. But it does matter if you've got shares or money in the bank or property. All that can just get frozen and stolen from you. Even if there's not a collapse, because there hasn't been a collapse in Russia, they just fell out with the world powers, and bang, anyone Russian that had money outside of Russia, they had it stolen from them.
Yeah.
Kind of nuts. And everyone cheered it on. Like, yeah, you're cheering it on now because you think Russia bad. If your country that you're sat in becomes the bad one, you're going to get your money stolen. You won't be cheering that on. You'll be going, what the fuck? I worked hard for that money.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did have a little video for the Bitcoin 30K that I wanted to play. So I'll play it.
Start it off.
I'll play it now.
And I would sell my Bitcoin right into this rally. Sell my Bitcoin rally.
I played it. But it's ace, right? You enjoy it?
Right. I loved it.
He's become a bit of a mascot. Is it Kramer?
Yeah, Jim Cramer is the anti Bitcoin signal. Yeah, whatever he
But
says,
it's
opposite.
also what do they call it? A reverse Kramer. When he says that something's going to tank, it usually flies up, and when something's going to do well, it tanks.
Yeah,
So I think everyone just calls him a reverse Kramer when he predicts something. It's completely wrong.
yeah, it's like a Peter Schiff. Like we love it when he comes out when Bitcoin's been plummeting for a little bit, and he comes out to gloat. You're like, "Thank you, Peter. That means we're going up."
Yeah.
But then when he comes out when we're going up and he starts going like something positive, you're like, "Oh, Peter, that means we're going down." But yeah, it's Kramer and Schiff are just like almost like little pets of Bitcoin, aren't they? They don't, whatever they say, the opposite happens.
Talking
Yeah,
of
'cause I think
Schiff, I just subscribed to his channel, his YouTube channel, and I
Oh,
thought, yeah, and he started talking, and I was like, I can't watch this, and just switched off.
yeah. You know what? He had some really good videos back when, when people were protesting Wall Street and the 1%. He went out to
Yeah.
talk to those people and went, you know what? You're protesting the wrong people. Like it's the elite that are doing this to you. It's the money printing that's doing to you. But then his answer was always buy gold. That's the hedge. And so again, like with Peter, I agree with him on 98% of what he says. It's the final 2% where he hates Bitcoin and thinks gold's the answer. That's where we suddenly divert. But he knows everything. He knows that fiat's a scam. It's backed by nothing. And he absolutely gets all that. But because even the people that were protesting Wall Street, it's like you're protesting the wrong thing. You're like demanding higher taxes and all that stuff. You're like, you do realize all that money just goes to the government. They are the 1%.
I had a conversation with one of my friends, and he's on about this higher tax for the kind of 1%. I said, the government has a spending problem rather than a taxing problem. Oh, they're not paying a fair tax. I'm like, well, if you charge everyone 20% or 10%, something which is fair, you probably get everyone to pay. But he's like, but these people, it's complete inequality. I'm like, you need to stop the money printing because people own the assets, build the money, so gold, housing, property, whatever else. But then he sent me, it was, Valuetainment? One of those videos, and he had this socialist guy on, and he kept on going on about how they had this 95% tax back in the 60s or 70s in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you do realize why things were so good in the 60s in the US? Because they were stealing the world's gold. They had their booming economy, and they were holding the world's gold while spending it on their infrastructure. That's why things were so good in the US, because they were spending the world's money to make motorways and infrastructure, which is falling apart now.
Yeah.
There's no one that is ever taxed 95%, and that's turned out long-term good for the country. There's a very delicate balance around taxation. Obviously, I am anti-taxation completely, but if you even just look at the game theory for taxation, it's kind of almost where the UK are right now. It's a very delicate balance. They're probably right on the knife edge now, because if you go any higher than the 20 to 50% taxation, if you start going to increasing it to 50% goes to 60, 70, 80, the wealthy that would contribute the majority of the tax income, which just really triggers a lot of socialists. When you look at the highest earners, they contribute 90% of the tax income. The bottom 90% contribute the other 10. They hate hearing that, but it's true. So with a second you start eking into those people, it doesn't take very many of them just to leave. And the overall tax revenue, even though the percentage is higher, it's off a smaller pot. So you want to maximize the pot and maximize the percentage if you're the government. It's a very delicate balance. And if you go too high with the percentage, the pot decreases. If you go too low with the percentage, then you're just missing out on revenue. So
they did that in the 70s in the UK, and they had to stop, didn't they? Because people just fled, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it's not even just tax evasion. It's like literally people will just up and leave. Like if you're earning millions, you can up and leave.
Yeah.
And they did that in France as well.
95% everything over 100 grand. You're going to let every single person that earns £1 million a year is going to leave. And who are they? They're the CEOs. They're the founders of companies. So what do? They employ fucking everyone else. You want them to stay. You want those people here. And they're still paying 50% tax on that £1 million. They're paying $500,000 a year in tax. How is that not enough for people?
Exactly.
the kind of like main stat around this, around more taxation, is how much a government is effective. When was the last time which a government actually shrank in size, or is it increased like a parasite every year? And it has increased. Like we talked about, what was it in the UK, which the Tories got to power in about 2010. What was the term? It basically meant they froze spending. They never reduced spending, but they refused to put austerity. But they never put it into negative. Whereas the fact is that government is needed to go into negative for some time, trim out all the fat.
Yeah. What happens to a company when it misses its targets and the share price goes down by 70%? They don't just have austerity. They don't just pause spending. Like, people start to get fired and you start cutting people, right? That's what, and if anything, for a healthy company or for an unhealthy company to get healthy again, you cut costs. Government have never cut costs in their entire fucking life. But all they do is just go, oh, we're going to spend 10 billion every month next year. We'll just spend 9. You go, that isn't cutting costs. Like, you should be spending minus 1 billion to cut costs. Like, you should be getting rid of costs. A government has never done that.
Yeah, so you think about the NHS, it's the largest employer in the UK. And we all pay into the NHS, but the service is getting worse year on year because it's getting bloated. Whereas if you actually looked at it and cut the admin staff and actually cut it down of wild spending, so what you can claim expenses on, you'd maybe come up with an effective service which could be run on lower tax rates. But anyway, we've kind of digressed a little bit, haven't we?
Yes, we have digressed. That's what 30k Bitcoin does to us.
I know. Started a 30k Bitcoin, ended up with the NHS tax efficiency. How about we move on to a nice serious story about Bitcoin mining at Riot and the fact that Bitcoin has 0 carbon emissions. And so I'll play the video now.
We're here out in Rockdale, Texas. We've got lots of plants here. These plants are consuming CO2 and emitting oxygen, which is fantastic. When we measure CO2 out here, we're in the green. There are very low levels of CO2, 455 parts per million of CO2, just fantastic reading. Rockdale has some of the freshest air I've ever breathed. So this is a great way to establish a baseline. We're gonna go inside the mining facility and we're going to see how much is this number going to go up. If the number does not go up, then the mining rigs are not emitting any CO2. If the number goes down, that would be interesting as well. So let's find out. This is where the science happens. This is the largest Bitcoin mining facility in the United States. Outside, we were at 455 parts per million of CO2. Inside, we're at 428 parts per million of CO2. So CO2 levels actually decreased a little bit by entering this Bitcoin mining facility. That might just be a measurement error. But in any case, so far our going thesis is that Bitcoin mining does not emit any CO2 at all. But let's go to an air-cooled building and see if that's the case there as well. We're on the air intake side of this air-cooled mining facility. We're still out here in Rockdale at Riot's world-leading mining facility. We're at 452 CO2 parts per million. Still in the green. This is good. This is good. We're going to see in the hot aisle where the exhaust is coming out of how much CO2 is coming out of the Bitcoin mining rigs. Let's find out. All right. We're going to put the meter just right behind a fan so that we're blowing all of the air onto the meter, and we're going to see what it's going to change here in terms of measurements. We're still at 452 parts per million. This result makes me think that there might not be any CO2 coming out of the Bitcoin mining rig. I think the science is conclusive. The data shows Bitcoin mining does not emit any CO2.
So, what do you guys think of this? Because this is Pierre. So this is Pierre.
It's science.
Man,
Who trust the science? You're not a science denier, are you?
no.
So,
As Pierre says, this is a real scientist collecting credible, high quality data.
It's one of those where it won't necessarily reach the masses initially because it debunks everything that is used as FUD, right?
Yeah.
That we're burning a hole in the ozone layer. It's a waste of energy and etc. etc.
Just so you know, Dan,
before.
I'll have to never look even. I don't know. I won't. But this whole video is a troll, right? You realize this whole video is a troll. It's not real. It's like,
isn't it?
Because clearly.
But trust the science.
Because he obviously missed out one massive metric, which is, well, how are those things running? And all the questions about Bitcoin mining about how do you power the miners, right? So you could have.
I loved it when he put this CO2 meter by the fan of a computer, and like I remember comments which I saw all over Twitter about that. It just cracked me up.
Oh man, and there's shit tons of articles that all came out about this video going, oh my god, Bitcoiners have got no clue. You don't hold a CO2 monitor up to the actual thing. It's about where it's powered. And there could be a huge coal manufacturer like sat behind pumping out CO2 into the sky that powers these miners. But Pierre's whole point here and Riot's whole point is this is what people do around Tesla cars. They do it around solar panels. They forget where the thing fucking appeared from. Like, what's powering a Tesla? Yeah, is it solar power?
It's the batteries.
It's not, is it? It's like, and what powers a battery? Yeah, a fucking coal power station that lives down the road that is burning coal. Like, it's not all solar panels. Where does the solar panel even come from? It's a load of natural resources that come out the ground. The solar panels have got to get changed out every 10 years. It's a nonsensical thing about going, oh look, this car is zero emissions. No, it's not, because it's got to be powered by the coal power station down the road. So he's just gone, well, let's just do the same test that they do on Teslas. Let's just point the CO2 meters at the thing. No CO2 increase, must be zero carbon neutral.
I think the phrase which he used was, the science is conclusive. Bitcoin mining does not emit any CO2.
Yeah.
But it didn't make me think so much of like solar panels and Teslas. It made me think more back to like the last 3 years about the science. And it made me think, like he said, pretty much, I'm a scientist. Look at this. And it's like, it made me think back over the past 3 years, all the fucktarded things which we've been told, such as wearing a mask. It's just like, you do realize that the gauze isn't like minute enough to stop viruses go through. And then also, what is it? You got to walk one way around Tesco's and things like that, and you can't both sit on a bench outside. And people wearing masks in Spain outside, otherwise they get clubbed to death by the police. And it's like, this is for your health.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about.
So my vaccination works better.
And COVID knows time as well. So at 11 o'clock, it starts from there.
But not if you're eating a pasty. If you're eating a pasty, it's fine.
I remember being in a restaurant with the missus when it was still masks, and you had to wear a mask to go to the toilet. But when you were sitting down, you could just eat your food. And and she was like, I need to go to the toilet. I said, make sure you wear your mask before you stand up, otherwise COVID's going to get you. I'm a look, which I got.
Science, bro.
But yeah, it was a great video, and it's one which triggered many no coiners who didn't get the irony in it. So yeah, I hope everyone who's listening got a good look at that one.
Take your time.
And maybe pass
it on the first time I watched it, I was with you, Never. I did think, what the fuck? Like, this is. I'm like, I like it, but I'm not going to support this really because he's missing out the main bit of where the Bitcoin, like if you are going to talk about Bitcoin CO2 production, it's about where the energy comes from. And he didn't talk about that at all. He just walked around and looked at the machines. It's like, this isn't a fair test. I'm like, am I crazy? And I looked at the comments. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's a massive troll. Okay, I was a bit slow. I got you now because yeah. Because I think what I'd missed is I think this was in response to a New York Times article that had flooded Bitcoin to hell on its energy usage, and it had done
Does anyone
similar
still
types
read
of
that,
things that
Rag?
Pierre's doing. You what?
Does anyone still read the New York Times? It's just full of shit, isn't it?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. But like, it still has a little bit of credibility with the normies. So every time we see it, so I think it was a parody of their article where they had done similar tests to prove that Bitcoin was like a super high pollutant and was causing the oceans to boil. So I think Pierre just went, you know what, let's just do their bollocks, but the reverse, just to show how stupid their article is. Like, we'll just do a stupid one. But fair play for like staying as straight faced as he was throughout the whole thing, because he must have been wanting to burst out laughing because the entire thing was just, he should, the only criticism I have for this video, they should have done it about 10 days earlier for April 1st, because
yeah,
this is a great April Fool's video.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a shame. The next one, the next article that we've got, I really love this. So 5.5 years of DCAing and how you can map it out by using the Google Docs spreadsheet that has been provided in the article.
I mean, you have also got this in your Coinbase. So if you extract the data from it there, it's all your buy prices. You can just apply what it is now. So same logic, and it's fairly straightforward to do, but really interesting to see a long-term DCA though.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a guy who, how much was it a month which he bought?
€500 a month.
Yeah, you're right. So €500 every month, and he didn't seem to do any big purchases. And it just shows how it all mounts up over time. And it's good for someone who's probably, who is a lot newer than him, to look at it and kind of go, this is what happens over long term. Like I've been in Bitcoin coming up to 3 years, whereas this is 5 years, so an extra 2 years. Albeit I was probably, quite a lot of mine was in the bull market.
Yeah. And he's managed, so on that €500 a month that he's put in, he's managed to get 4.32 Bitcoin as of April 7th when he posted this, which is, and he says it, isn't it? It's like he never thought he was going to get that much Bitcoin because when he started, the price was higher, and then as he started DCAing, the prices kept getting away from him. He's like, I'm barely going to be a whole coiner, but this is the power of DCA. The price comes down and the price goes up, and now he's sat there with 4 Bitcoin, and this is the thing. He's basically putting 500
and a retirement plan.
Yeah, I like how he calls it that as well. I'd like to hope that he stopped paying into his fiat retirement and he switched that payment and just went, fuck your little tax efficiency bollocks. I'm going to go self-sovereign on this retirement and I'm going to put it into Bitcoin instead. And now he's doing well, isn't he? And there's so many people that I know that think they've missed the boat. I don't have enough money to put into Bitcoin, and they hear DCA and you go, look, just put £100 a month in, put £50 a month, put whatever you can afford, just put it in. Like, even if you obviously you're not brave enough to stop your pension straight away, but put £50 a month in. And DCAing in Bitcoin, especially in this early stage of the adoption, the price is still pretty volatile. So DCAing just really saves you from all that pain. You're not attached to a certain number. You're just going, I don't even know what my average buy price is. It doesn't really even fucking matter. All you're doing is just stacking, and you stack all the way up in the bull market, but the same percentage. And then as the price comes down, you buy all the way down, and then you buy all the way back up again. You don't pretend to know what the market's going to do. You just DCA consistently and for years. And this is a great example of a guy that that admittedly went, I'm never going to have 4 Bitcoin. It's just, I'm too late to the game. 5 years later, he's not a big earner. 500 euros is that's a decent.
I was going to say it's significant how much he's been putting in.
That's decent. But, it's 6,000 euros a year. Yeah, which it's significant, but it isn't. He's not a millionaire. This guy probably earns 50 grand a year. So, okay, he's earning decent money, but it's not insane money. And he's ended up with 4 Bitcoin. And so you never too, and people even now will be like, yeah, but that was 5 years ago. Now it's too late. That's what this guy thought. This guy thought he would never have 4 Bitcoin and still went, you know what? I'm still going to DCA anyway, just in case. And he was right. So don't think that now. Like, just everyone thinks they're too late. Like, oh, the guy that did it started 5 years ago. Yeah, of course he's okay. Yeah, you will be okay in 5 years if you DCA now too. That's
definitely. What's interesting is Natalie Brunel, who does a number of interviews, Bitcoin interviews. She says that she DCAs the price of a meal every day. Now, the 500 would work out at roughly £21 a day. Now,
is that a Tesco meal deal? £3? Or
I was going to say, what's Natalie Brunel? Is it a Tesco meal bill? Is it Happy Meal? Is it Cordon Bleu?
An 8-course taster meal in a Michelin star restaurant?
Exactly. I mean, to do that, what he's done is roughly £21 a day, 21.42 a day.
Is it?
So yeah. So it's not crazy, but it's possible, isn't it? You could easily spend a tenner a day, easily. Not just on food, just on anything. Just everyday life.
Say like divide it by 10 and go, okay, fine. You can only afford 50 euros a month, right? Which is, I don't even know what that is. Well, that's £2 a day now, not 20 pounds a day. So instead of having 4 Bitcoin, you'd have 0.4 Bitcoin. You're still doing well. It's like I would hazard a guess to go, if that's all you can afford on a month, on a monthly basis, that is going to be your biggest saving pot you've got by a fucking country mile. And if you fast forward another 5 years, that 0.4 Bitcoin will be more than your entire net wealth in everything else. So
I think that whole point applies to any kind of like investment. If you're going to invest in the S&P, like that much per month instead of nothing is absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. And people don't get like the DCAing mindset, or even the, I suppose, the maths behind it, in that constantly stacking, even if it's a fiat investment, is something which is going to help you get out of the hellhole which you're in.
It goes back to the psychology of money, doesn't it? Of knowing that if you are watching the price, thinking, spending 20 quid a day here, and it's at rock bottom, and there's a war that's going on and everything else, and it's to have that fortitude of, what, doesn't matter, putting it in, and it just goes, and you think nothing more of it. That's hard.
Yeah, I've actually seen it with like my relative. So I had a relative that's been stacking, but a relatively low amount for her net wealth. It's like one of my aunties, and the price is up 70% now. And so she asked me to come around and take a look at her pension planning and all that stuff. It's all maturing, and she wants my advice on where to put stuff and all that. And now's the time, she goes, should I lump into some Bitcoin? And I just go, well, I'm a dangerous person to ask. Of course, it's a yes. But you've been DCAing for the last 3 years at one level. That it was 70% cheaper at those levels. Why didn't you just increase the monthly? And she went, well, didn't have the confidence. And you just go, it's like people really don't get it. They literally will DCA at such a low amount where it's like, I don't give a shit whether I lose it or not. And then the price goes up, like pretty much doubles. And now they're going, should I put a lump in? And you're putting people like me under pressure, because I'm like, well, I don't know. The price could dump by 50% tomorrow, and you're going to fucking have my balls. So
it's that like meme where you got the 60k line versus the 20k. It was like the meme which is all over Twitter, and it's like everyone's queued up behind the 60k and no one's there for the 20.
Yeah. It feels like that around the 30k line now. So no one wanted to buy it below 20k. And now it's 30k. Everyone's like fucking queuing up going, can I lump in now? I'm like, well, I don't know if it's going to be back down to 20k. My advice to her was just don't lump in, just increase substantially your DCA. I get a text the next day going, I just bought a lump of Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad because it will work out. Please hold this for the long term, but for fuck's sake, like it's just you're. This is, and I was thinking like, oh no, this is marking the top. Like my auntie doesn't know anything, is lumping into Bitcoin. Here we go. Here's sub 10k Bitcoin coming.
I would relish that. I lumped in when it was like 45k, so £45,000. That was painful watching it go back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everyone. It's probably me just having like a lot of experience in the market and having lived through 2 bull runs now. You just get used to it, and you just know that literally when the price goes down, that's when you buy. And but I think that it takes a bit of experience to get to that point. And I'm seeing a lot of people coming in on their first cycle, and they buy when the price is high and they sell when the price is low. It's fucking dumb, but it's just human nature.
I mean, technically, it is mine and Sir Neverlook's second cycle, because we bought in the first bull run.
I was going to say,
right at the top.
20.
I
was going to say.
You need to live out a full one though. Maybe I hope you've lived out the whole bear market now. I'd like to think you have.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
We can't tell till the next halving, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird how that the bear market was a lot shorter this time, which has got my spider senses flagging, going, maybe we've got a big hit to come. Who knows? We've got something this could be a nice little pump just to go, oh look, yeah, the bull market's come in, here comes 100k, and then boom, fuck off 10k. Just let's wash out all the non-believers, like really let's wash them out. And yeah. I'd be a bit gutted if that happens, to be honest, because all my fiat's in now. I'm literally fucking all in. When that bank collapse started happening, any spare fiat I had went in. So if we get 10k Bitcoin now, I'm like, fuck's sake, I'm gutted. But I missed out on a lot of fucking coins.
I've got some dry powder on the side, ready and waiting.
Yep.
But
let's hope the bank doesn't collapse before Bitcoin is 10k.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing, isn't it? That's where I'm storing the dry powder to put in.
Exactly.
Right.
Next one.
And talking of collapsing and shutting down, Paxful announces shutdown community with a 100% withdrawal initiative. So, as we know, in 2022, we witnessed the demise of several platforms across the crypto industry, and one of those for 2023 is Paxful. So, the CEO of Paxful wrote an elaborate note highlighting the closure on the firm's website, saying today Paxful will be suspending its marketplace. We are not sure if it will come back. This will probably come as a big shock to many. While I cannot share the full story now, I can say that we unfortunately have had some key staff departures. Has there been any further update on this?
Just below that, I think the quote may have been added, or it might have been there before, but it basically says, my co-founder sued the company and sued me. I have a lawsuit over my head right now. So when he says some key staff departures, that is a co-founder, and he's suing the company and himself. So people think that what he's doing is basically closing the company down to avoid this lawsuit, really. So there's nothing to take. But who knows, really? I think it's a lot of like he said, she said. There's a lot of rumors going around, but it does seem to fit a pattern, right? So the only reason Paxful have ever been on our agenda before is because they were a peer-to-peer marketplace that did all the coins.
Yeah.
But he announced, probably, I don't know how long ago it was now, 6 months or a year ago, somewhere between there, that they were going Bitcoin only. So that's what he hit our agenda for, going, oh, look, this is good.
Yes, I remember that.
He's gone Bitcoin only, and this CEO got a bit of a name for himself as a bit of a Bitcoin maxi. So it's a little bit worrying, right? That there's another peer-to-peer platform. We had one go a couple of months ago. Now I've got another one going here. So I'd like to think that it's not going Bitcoin only that caused the business to fail. Maybe it is some weird kind of lawsuit.
I read something about some kind of lawsuit between the owners, so it seems like it's a little bit misleading.
Well, his quote is his co-founder sued the company and sued me. So that's his excuse. His excuse for the company failing ultimately is but it's weird though, because what kind of lawsuit could cause him to literally need to shut the whole company down? Like what's it about? Is it because the good thing is he is allowing, it's not something where he's lost all the money. It's not an FTX. It's not GOX. He's given everyone, like, essentially the company seems to have failed in some shape or form, but all the Bitcoin they should have, they do have. So everyone that wants to take their Bitcoin out can take it out. They're giving everyone plenty of notice to take their Bitcoin out of their business. And they're very confident that they have all that Bitcoin. And from what I've seen on Bitcoin Twitter, that has been true. Everyone with money in Pax4 has got their money back. So it's something in the real world that I think has just caused this business to fail ultimately. And I don't know, in a weird way, I wouldn't be surprised if what part of the failure of this was their shitcoin past. With the shitcoins just going to
come back to haunt them.
Getting so wrecked, so wrecked that I think they just went, you know what, this is too hard. And the shitcoins were the ones that were probably, I don't know, they got so wrecked. They can't afford to run a business now. And it basically exposed the fact that this business isn't profitable, really, I think, without kind of shitcoiners funding it from shitcoin gains. So and this is the thing, right? With Bitcoin, it's going to be a harsh reality of Bitcoin companies. There's no bailouts. There's no easy money. It's hard to set up a business that just, you build something for £1 and sell it for £2. That's tough. It's really hard. And it looks like this company, unfortunately, weren't quite doing that. Because I honestly don't know really how you make decent money off having a peer-to-peer Bitcoin platform. And I think it's one of the real key problems we need to solve as Bitcoiners, because we need these things. And local Bitcoin, that was the one that closed a couple of months ago.
That was it, yeah, local Bitcoin.
So they're done. And then Pax4 kind of filled the void. Now they're gone. So we're getting pushed to big exchanges more and more and more. And it's not good. We need these little peer-to-peer exchanges to still exist, and them closing down from what looks like, if it's true, these petty kind of fallouts between founders. It's a shame that such an important company is failing because the two co-founders fell out.
I'm just trying to look on CoinGecko to understand because once upon a time there was so many shitcoins that were out there, but understand if that number has decreased as we've seen a decrease in exchanges as well. Because, I'd like to think people are a little bit smarter, but as I'm saying it just, my confidence decreases, thinking like, surely you would realize it's not about putting your money into Tornado Cash or some coin called Petals at 898 in terms of, as I'm going through this list. But yeah, I'm just thinking, surely that would decrease, and then people will finally get the rhetoric that, Bitcoin, we don't like it, but, ETH, Tron, those other ones, they'll all eventually die, but there's the stronger of the shit coins. But it seems as though, as I'm still scrolling down the list, it seems as though there's more and more shitcoins growing each and every day. I'm at like 1,500 and more.
Oh, of course. Yeah. They won't stop spawning, you know. Anyway, should we move on to
Let's definitely move on.
Dr. 10%'s favorite part of the week? Actually copy in this. I will copy it in.
Well, funny enough, I couldn't actually. I think this is one of the Telegraphs behind the paywall. I couldn't actually read the damn article.
I was going to say I couldn't read it because
I had a Google on the title and it came up on Yahoo articles, so I went off that.
Okay.
But there's some absolute crackers of quotes within this Yahoo article, so I'll start with those. So,
what is it first? What is it?
So this is an article by some fucking moron. I'm trying. Oh, I'll load up the articles. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
While you're doing that, I'll give the listeners the overview of. So the title is called "Our Money Printing Spree Did Not Cause Inflation Crisis." The Bank of England insists.
Silvana Henreo has insisted that COVID money printing spree is not to blame for double-digit inflation amid the steepest rises in 41 years. So I think they just shoved out someone who's a woman, let's be honest, on this one, to try and soften the blow and say this is an important policymaker, whereas in fact it's just someone to stick in front of the camera.
Sounds like you're being sexist.
Yeah, but let's be honest, they're trying to deflect by saying, look at how equal we are, rather than the fact that we've really fucked up everyone's life and made everyone really poor, so poor that they're worried to put the heating on.
Yeah, but a vagina can't be wrong.
But I found this article on Yahoo, and some quotes were, I fucking love these quotes, by the way.
By the way, it's black vagina, which means it's doubly right.
The
only thing that make it more right is that a bit of a penis dripping over it, but carry on.
Right, anyway, I want to say my fucking quotes. Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee member Silvana Tendreo has warned inflation could soon to get too low, despite the drastic pace of pricing rises at the moment. So it'll get too low. How can inflation get too low? Oh, please, it's too low. It's only 1%. You're only decreasing my wage and money in my bank by 1% a year. I want it to be at least 5%.
Yeah,
it's just fucking moron.
It's obviously it's at 20 now. It's like you're scared about it going too low, or is it 20? Like Savannah, I think that's the opposite problem we have right now.
Yeah, we need deflation. We need deflation by 30%. And then another quote: if inflation is too low or negative, then some people maybe put off spending because they expect prices to fall. The bank notes an explanation of a 2% target. So they might wait for prices to fall. Whereas, like I said, reality, it needs to go into massive deflation so people can actually afford to heat their homes, feed their families, and not be scared about being able to pay the rent and their utilities.
It's this whole fucking argument that people love having 2% of their wealth stolen every year. They love it. If it was to go,
I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but it's something which I think about all the time.
And we have these conversations offline all the time. We're at the point, it's like we're scared. We are genuinely scared of like, what's going on? Why are we the only ones talking about this?
But everyone has literally got Stockholm syndrome about this. They believe it's good for the economy. It's like, but GDP grew by 1%. Wasn't that amazing? It's because we fucking grew the money supply by 30%. So actually, we went down 29%. You fucking moron.
Yeah.
They inflate the money by 20%, and we grow by 1%, and they're like, "What a win!" What world are you living in? We shrunk by 19%, you fucking moron.
Yeah, we just made more money available.
Yeah, GDP is measured in pounds or dollars, and they printed more of them, so of course it's worth more because there's just more circulating.
But it's two statistics because we have we have GDP stats and the growth quarter to quarter, and we have CPI, and no one seems to be going like this. Are the two connected? But then this woman says the money printing is not to blame for double-digit inflation. It's just like, so what was? Was it Ukraine? Did Ukraine do it in last November before the Ukraine-Russia war happened? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Well, she said it was caused by large and unexpected external shocks.
Sounds like Russia caused inflation 2 months before they started the war.
Yeah. It's as if they almost realized that inflation was going to get out of control and needed an excuse, so they did something. And then, yeah, of course they're going to. It's just easy. Nuts to read this article, right? Because this is obviously on the Telegraph. This is, the Financial Times. This is what all our boomer parents will read. And it's actually interesting that further down the article, it actually does get debunked a little bit. Like there's someone saying down here where, QE is surrounded by hocus pocus and confusion about the channels through which it has its impact. And it's good that they at least put a quote like that in this article, because that's exactly what is happening. Like when you talk about money printing and then you talk about quantitative easing, most people don't know the two things are the same, because quantitative easing sounds like it's a really complicated economic financial term that you really need to understand everything about those topics to understand what quantitative easing is. And in reality, you go, no, they are just increasing the supply of the money. It is just that simple. They just call it quantitative easing to make you think you're not smart enough to know what it is. And then they just go, oh, and this thing that we're doing, I know they don't even explain what it is. They just go, and the benefit to this is we stimulate the economy, we encourage people to spend. It's better for everyone. Trust us.
Do you know what she should have said?
What?
It was the inflation dragon. Came and fucked our shit up.
But yeah, it's just convoluted bollocks, isn't it? And then bizarrely, this article isn't even convoluted bollocks. It's actually very weird.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's not that. It's
but like
simple.
They haven't rolled out like the head of the Bank of England. They've rolled out someone who they're kind of like trying to deflect. That's what I was saying. They put out a woman, so it's like, look, we're an equal opportunities employer.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a distraction rather than bringing out the guy who's in charge of it, who's some multimillionaire whose assets far outweigh his income.
It's a black lesbian vagina. So if you disagree with that,
I love how we've gone from
you're racist,
a woman to a vagina to being black to being a lesbian, and with a bit of penis dripping out.
So if you disagree with the article, you're a racist, sexist, homophobe. It's like, no, she's just talking complete and utter bollocks.
It's just this giant lie, and it's just, I look at this and go, I knew inflation was happening, but it just never fully clicked in my head before looking to Bitcoin, and now it's there. It's just fucking destroyed my life.
God,
I think it's like seeing the Matrix, right? Like before, this kind of article would look like code to you, and you go, oh, it's going to take a lot of time for me to figure this out. But now you're out of the Matrix and you just see what it is. You just see, oh, that's a woman. It's
destroyed ours, because every time he sees something, he messages us to be like, this.
They're lying about inflation again.
Yeah.
It's just because I tell
Mr. All-In, I have to put it with him at work as well.
It's when I tell my missus and she just looks at me blankly.
Isn't it weird though how like literally there's people that get it, and then if you said the same thing to anyone else, they look at you and go, "You're weird."
Yeah.
You go, "What the fuck? How am I the weird one?" This is so clearly, but like for the majority of people, they read this article and they go, "Sounds legit." But when you know the truth, you go, "There's not a word of that you believe." You go, "Lie, lie, lie, lie." But for the average person, they go, I don't know how to prove or disprove this. Sounds legit. I'm going to move on with my life. I believe her.
I was listening to a book today called, I think it's Winning, and he talks about that everyone will look at you like you're absolute fucking crazy, and that's how I feel most of the time. Is everyone looks like I'm fucking crazy because they just do not get it.
Yeah. You enjoying it?
It's a good book. It is a good book, but I definitely got what he said. He said, say to yourself what you think if you won something. I just went, temporary relief before it all starts again. And he's like, if you're an average person, you'll celebrate and then slack off and you'll be like, that's your accomplishment for your life. And I just kind of go, yeah, my brain's a bit broken now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about, whilst Mr. All-In is off for a moment, we're talking about Winning by Tim Grover, the trainer to both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. So yeah, it's a great one. But I do feel like we're in this, and I'm sure the listeners that join us every week, thank you, subscribe, like, share, comment, and we're in this bubble, but this bubble is slowly but surely getting a little bit bigger. But when you try to bring others into the bubble, they will look at you very, very strange. And I do feel at times I have less and less to say to others because I'm just like, there's no point. So I just, as I always do, I'll randomly message you at whatever time at night to be like, what about this? And even when I see that your out of office is on, I'll still message you because I'm like, I need to talk to somebody.
But it's like the investments, Mr. All mentioned it, and it's like when you see the code, things start making sense. The financial world makes sense to me. I wish I'd seen the code and actually understood the code years ago. So it would have helped me make more right decisions. But yeah, in a way, it's destroyed my life. But in a way, it's opened up my brain to what's actually there and what it all means in the financial world. You look at it now and you're just like, it's so much more simple than you realize. Anyway, enough of a rant on the inflation fucking moron article. We've got everyone's favorite CEO, JP Morgan, Jamie. Is it Dimon? Oh, it's pronounced.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon. Yeah,
who loves talking about his pet rock.
Yeah. So before we go on to this, I know again I sent you guys a video to watch where Natalie Brunel interviewed Whitney Webb. And Whitney Webb is the investigative reporter who looked into what's his name, that brought back the collapse down, Jeffrey Epstein.
Solid guy.
Yeah. So she if there's anything that she doesn't know about Jeffrey Epstein, I'd be surprised because she is one tough cookie. She's exposing the lies of.
Funnily enough, it's what I was going to mention because I've listened to most of that interview, and it talks about our friend Jamie here. Talks about how he was put in his position, like Epstein was, by the same decision makers.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't one which I took lightly, although I don't have the information behind it. So I was kind of going, that's interesting. Makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense, doesn't it? And Jamie is effectively a puppet, but in front of, the world stage, controlling the strings, but is being controlled himself after being placed in this position.
Well, he was sacked from an earlier job, wasn't he? And then brought into this one.
Yeah, exactly.
So a bit like Christine Lagarde, who was found not found guilty of fraud, but I think on the verge of going to prison, given a really high job at the ECB for some weird reason.
Yeah.
But again, I think
the perfect puppet is a disgraced expert.
Yeah.
So you were good in the field, but you fucked up big. So now they can go, we're going to save you from that and save you from the consequences. and promote you about 10 layers up. But just know at any point you can fall back down and you'll get punished to the full extent of the law. And once you're in the role, you go, by the way, these are the bullet points you want you to say. And just remember, if you don't say them, the fall from grace is going to be hard. And it's going to involve prison time. So it's a common theme, isn't it? All these people that are in very high positions, quite a lot of them have checkered pasts. So again, you have leverage over these people to make them do and say what you want them to do and say.
But it's a interesting article in that Jamie Dimon talks about how government should force buy private property to fight climate change. And you kind of go, this is socialism pretty much, isn't it? Because they'll pay them their shit money, which they can print at the stroke of a key. And it's just like, why should people have their land taken off them? So you kind of go, but in my head, I'm going, well, what land would they go for? It's not going to be a housing estate. It's going to be a farm. So what's going to produce the food? And we've seen this in the Netherlands, where they're force selling farms in the Netherlands to create a mega city. Well, that's a rumor anyway, but they are definitely force selling farms. And it's so, where's my food going to come from then? Where are the cows going to graze? Where are the chickens going to be? And it kind of goes, well, actually, they're just probably going to produce some sludge in a factory, aren't they? I think this is where this is going. It's like, we can have some solar panels, we can have some wind farm. It's like, but don't wind farms need wind to be at an ideal speed? Then also, how do you store this energy to actually power a grid? Don't we need more nuclear in order to do that? It's just, I kind of did read it wondering what his angle was, and I kind of went, I think it's literally just another WEF. It's not about investment or virtue signaling. No. It's pretty much, get ready, we're going to start taking your property. Well, we're going to take the farms, and you're going to start eating vegan sludge topped with crickets.
Yeah, but it's why I started a potentially new weekly, which was this as WEF Weekly. It didn't mention the WEF anywhere in the article, but I just went, this is the WEF. This is the head of one of the biggest. Weekly.
Yeah.
Because I think they're almost going to be a recurrent theme, right? Because you're right. There is no personal motivation that drives this type of stuff, really. It just seems to be, well, what is it? And it is the Great Reset. That's what drives this type of agenda.
Yeah, we shouldn't have nuclear power stations because they're too effective. They'll power too many homes. So we're going to go for solar and wind power, which takes up lands, removes farms, and cow farts are boiling the oceans. Whereas it's like, well, actually, when you look at the stats, the domestic cow doesn't produce that much, and all the meat export. It's actually the flight and the logistics to take that cow somewhere. So why don't we just actually sort out the logistic structure of our food and have domestic sourcing instead of international?
Yeah, well, that'd be way too sensible, wouldn't it? Just to have little communities self-sustainable. No. We need global big governments that sort everyone out. But yeah, we didn't have it in the agenda this week, but just to counter this article, which completely shows the hypocrisy of the same people, but they're on different sides of the same argument, but it suits them in both cases. So you got Warren Buffett basically lambasting Bitcoin and saying it's causing climate change and it's not an investment, blah blah blah. But then you've got Jamie Dimon on the other side going, well, we need to basically seize force the sale of assets to fund this thing. And Warren Buffett's argument was, no matter how many banks collapse, the government can just print money to make it whole. They are government-backed currencies. That is why they are so safe, so secure. So no one needs to be worried because governments back this stuff and can just print themselves out of trouble. Yet Jamie Dimon here, who is kind of one of the same old legacy dinosaurs kind of puppets, is going, oh no, there's not an infinite printing machine for climate change. That doesn't exist now. Suddenly we're out of money. So the only way to get the amount of investment we need to go into solar, wind, is to seize the assets of our citizens. And you just go, right, let's just zoom out for a minute, right? So Warren's going, trust the banks, the government's got it. What are the incentives there? Well, all the bankers freaking have the money and the elite have the money in the bank. Okay, so they're saying us to trust the banks, government's got it. However, the government hasn't got climate change. They completely don't have this one covered. So we need to suffer to pay for this one. That's convenient.
So what's the meme which I've seen going round? The government can't solve homelessness, but tells you by taxing you a little bit more, they'll solve climate change.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, we just don't believe it. But kind of like to add a point on Jamie Dimon, because I love this, love my quotes, because it's just pure bullshit. The need to provide energy affordably and reliably for today, as well as necessary investments to decarbonise for tomorrow, underscores the inextricable links between economic growth, Dimon added. So kind of dig into that, affordably and reliable. Is renewable energy affordable? Is it reliable? Do you need sun? Do you need wind? And then decarbonise. How do you make a solar panel? Is it renewable? Is a wind farm? How do you make it? Is it renewable? And the answer's it's made out of shit which can't be recycled. It's expensive. It's unreliable. But we need more. Just can't make it up.
It's like every word you use to describe that form of energy is just wrong. It's a meme.
Yeah. Everyone knows the answer is nuclear. And I think we had a meme as well about Germany this week.
Yeah.
Protesting about the badness of nuclear. So Germany closed down its nuclear power station, so it's now using coal. I'll start burning paper next.
Not only did they not create more nuclear, they shut it down, so they got to burn even more coal.
To Jamie Dimon, I think, as we said at the beginning of the this week's pod, everything he says is do the opposite. So if he says stay away from Bitcoin, go all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, though he does love his pet rock.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to. It's a classic, don't necessarily do as they say, watch their actions, and their actions are, of course, pushing CBDCs and digital currencies.
I think he's got multi-billion-pound wealth. He should, sell all his land to have a solar farm on and go and live in a flat.
I mean, what's also interesting, of course, is the fact that as we're seeing the collapse of all these banks, we know the position of JP Morgan is, number one, effectively, or one of the number one banks where it will all collapse into. So as I'm sure we've said it before, this controlled demolition, it all folds into their hands. So the things that they're saying, or he's saying, and I'm sure we'll cover it in WEF Weekly, will all eventually tessellate into them and him being the number one and plays into their hands. So, watch your space.
So, moving on to the next story. This is one about, I think we covered, it must be a couple months ago, about the how France were enslaving parts of Africa. So it's one which I actually thought about, and it's a good article. So I clicked through and read all the bits. So there's a French franc, it's now the euro, isn't it? But they had the French-controlled CFA franc. So it's a bunch of different countries, and it basically is countries which, what's the correct word for it? France had as their colonies. So Guinea being one of them. And it's basically when they've tried to get into independence, France have done some things like counterfeiting the French franc. So they basically swamped their economy with too much money and ruined the currency. But now, like reading through all this, it's like really, really good read. One which I definitely recommend people to read, to look at the kind of like evilness of fiat and the greed of elites and governments. And I suppose one kind of like question which I always come back to is, so France is creaming off, they're taxing these countries, they're inflating the CFA franc to then extract money out, they're getting cheap oil, they're getting cheap uranium. What are they doing with all the money? Because you'd expect that the taxes from Africa then go into France to make everything cheaper, but they've got like their top earners on 95% tax, and also they're trying to increase the pension ages. So where's all the money going?
Well, I think this is the canary in the coal mine, right? It's one of those where, guess what? France are pillaging loads of countries to underpin their own economy, but it's still collapsing. They're still having to push pension age now.
But the money's got to be siphoned. Like, you literally think that France got their economy, so say it's like 10, they're bringing in, what, I don't know, 10 trillion or whatever. They're getting all these African countries, like 10 of them, $1 trillion each. So literally they're bringing in double the amount of tax. Where's it all going? Like, you know, it's not like they're giving too much to their people.
Well, it's the same as America, right? America take most of the wealth of the Middle East to underpin their economy. It's still not enough.
It's still not enough, yeah.
But it's just
they
being siphoned out.
spend more than they earn. I
suppose my point is, it's not like it's being spent on the people of the country, though, is it? It's being siphoned out. Like, there's no way which this money is being spent on providing with school care, you know, their equivalent of NHS, retirement care, local parks, making sure that the homeless have got home. It's going nowhere near the people, is it? It is being siphoned out.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, in reality, if America, France, UK didn't have access to counterfeiting and just stealing the natural resources of other countries, they'd have already collapsed. They would already be under hyperinflation. The only reason hyperinflation hasn't hit the West yet is because of stuff like this.
Yeah.
But But when you say that, you make it sound like, oh, it's because the people are getting too much from the government.
No.
Like, a fraction of that money is going back to the people, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. But the problem is, like, obviously the monetary supply is increasing by such a huge amount. It needs to be underpinned by something. And this,
I get you.
This is what's being underpinned by. And so, yeah, they're stealing trillions from these other countries, but their economy is still increasing by multiple trillions. So this is the equivalent of going, oh, we're not on a gold standard, but we're kind of on an energy or resource or something standard, which is sitting behind a government standard. So with the US, it's, well, how much are we worth? It's like, well, fuck, we're not worth enough right now. Let's go take over Ukraine. Now we're worth an extra 2 trillion. And in France, it's, shit, we're not worth 500 billion. We're in the hole. Well, how about we just go get Papua New Guinea and counterfeit their currency and take them? They're worth 500 billion. Boom. That kind of underpins us to a certain degree because we've just basically co-opted their entire country to underpin ours, and people go, okay, so you control them. So you're kind of balancing debt off each other. But it's all fake. It's all built
robbing
on
Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
But you do kind of wonder, like,
further down the road, don't you?
Yeah. And it's super disgusting for the fact that you are stealing the entire wealth of nations here.
But you do wonder, like, with these African countries, what position may be in if they weren't colonized in this way and also extorted, because you kind of think there's a whole bunch of countries currently being extorted by France. If you took that away, what position would they be? Would they have developed? Would the people be in a better state to because obviously you've got the years before that, where it was enslavement. But then it's like this whole period, you're just making them bankrupt and putting them back to the cycle. It's almost like, we're going to bankrupt you, and the IMF can't come to you, but France can. France is going to get these loans round and round and keep washing you round and stealing your resources. I mean, kind of going into some of these, some quotes in here. So from the articles, when you click through, in the decades following independence, France supported the lavish lifestyles of African dictators while their people endured extreme poverty. I mean, these are US tricks, which they've seen across the Middle East. Like, there's no other way. And it's when Russia did something bordering on this, they're suddenly evil, but France are currently doing it. And then you've got people who are involved in this network also rigged elections and orchestrated coups. Another one is Bongo threatened to sign drilling contracts with the Americans when Elf temporarily closed its Port Gentil wells, and Tanja claimed he would hand over Niger's largest uranium mine to Chinese if France refused to agree to an increase of the price of uranium. So, like, they had them pinned on assets. So, similar to how the US has Saudi Arabia for oil, they're doing this to the African nations and basically taking their biggest, I suppose, most expensive resources and stealing off them for paltry prices.
It just also goes to show, I think about it, and I think we've spoken about this offline, it's when when someone's hard up, when they start selling or pillaging their assets. And this is their assets. Before they'd be like, yeah, we control them, but we don't need to go there yet. We'll just manage it ourselves. But now it's like, you need to work on that nation. Need to take a little bit from that nation.
This was a Reddit article, which then referenced Al Jazeera article from 2014, by the way. So my point is, we don't see this in Western media, do we?
Oh, never. Like,
literally until the last year, I didn't realize this was still going on in Africa. I thought this was something in the past, and like everyone was trying to help Africa, sending them aid. And it's just like, nope, we're going to fuck them over.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say this as well, because when the war started between Russia and the Ukraine, I started watching, I'd always done a lot more, but I used to watch France News 24. I watched Al Jazeera, and I also used to watch Russian TV, because you would get a better sense of what's going on outside of the mainstream news and media. And that's where you actually hear this type of this news. GB News, the UK equivalent, is, I'd probably say the best of the UK. And you kind of hear some controversial stuff on there. But you're so right. We'll never get to this point.
Yeah, it's just horrendous. Like, how are we meant to advance as a civilization when governments and elites are doing this?
Yeah. Which actually reminded me of something else I saw on Twitter, where it said something along the lines of CNBC is around 69% like paid media or something like that. So, government-backed and paid media, which again, mainstream, family members and friends will watch that. And then you give them real advice or real news about what's going on, and they're like, oh, shut up. Shut up. Stop it, Dr. Evil 10%. Get back in your pod.
Yeah.
I want to get back in my pod. I want that steak to taste real.
Yeah.
I know. It is nuts as well, because you have nothing to gain yet. Just imagine, like, what does a nation have to gain when it is exposed as completely extorting an African country to prop up its own economy? Well, they have a lot to gain there, right? Whereas you pointing it out,
like I said, it's not just propping up. Like, people are siphoning that money as well. It's not just, it's just,
it's corruption right the way through. But we've discussed it before, and it's disgusting, right? When you talk about what the benefits of a Bitcoin standard and what the downsides, you go in the 100 years to come, the books that get written on this form of society, when we look back and you look back on all the atrocities that have happened in the hundreds of years previous, and we look back and we almost laugh at society to go how barbaric it was, and how many wars and how many millions of people died during all these things. In the next 100 years, people will look back on our civilization and go, they were disgusting.
We're just, instead of using violence, we're using monetary systems, economics in order to slave people still.
Yeah, the biggest lie that has happened in the 20th century or the 21st century, whichever one, is that slavery has been abolished. Bollocks. It just got rebranded and very cleverly wrapped up in a form of fiat, and it has been weaponized. And bizarrely, it's like almost the topic of the day, ironically, is reparations for slavery. And it's like, holy shit, it's still going on. Here's an entire nation being enslaved for France to be pillaged.
I'd say,
but there's no people being shipped to France to like clean toilets. No, there's not. They're just having every shred of wealth that they have is being taken from them and given to France.
And every opportunity.
So
it's like, I would say this, and we did an article about Lebanon and the collapse of Lebanon and how they're using crypto. I think that and the Lebanon article are the two which we've read on the pod where I've just kind of, they've hit me the most. How catastrophic they both are.
Yeah. Should we move on to a lighter topic?
Oh, yeah. Bitcoin. Who doesn't love a bit of Bitcoin? Do you want to be enslaved? Do you want to eat the sludge? Do you want to eat the crickets? Bow down to your lord and master, Dishy Rishi. So Bitcoin, I've hired 30 more people. So this is the nickname for the UK CBDC. And they've hired 30 more people, some more posts there. And I've seen a few of the posts littered through Twitter, and they range between 60 and 80k. It's decent money. But when you're designing a fundamental monetary system for the UK, I thought you'd spend a little bit more, especially when you can just print more money to pay the developers. You kind of think you want the top people, don't you? You should be paying hundreds of thousands for each position and getting the creme de la creme. Not someone who's thinking, oh, this is pretty good money for 60, 80k to go and live in London where they can barely afford one-bedroom flat. And it did surprise me. So I'm kind of going, I don't see this working. I think they'll need someone to give it to them in order to get it working, because these people have got to remake the whole financial system into the slave coin.
Oh, yeah, let's just remind ourselves, your favorite story of the last year has pretty much been, was it the 38 billion for track and trace?
32.
Was it 32? Imagine if they just put 1 billion into doing a CBDC for Bitcoin. That would hire them hundreds of people, paying them hundreds of thousands of pounds each. And
but why the half-assed attempt at this?
I know, if anything, this makes me super bullish for Bitcoin. Come on, well, I can only think that this is like an outward indication of weakness, when in reality they're not weak; they're really strong behind. There's got to be something else, because if they're hiring just 30 people and the top people are on 80 grand, then clearly this is going to be an absolute nothing burger, and nothing's going to get launched. Like Bitcoin is not even going to get close to getting a leaflet out, never mind being integrated into all the financial apps and being able to do all the surveillance stuff that we were talking about, which is clearly their end goal. So
no,
again,
they just want to helicopter your money straight away to help you. How dare you?
They think that cash is dirty, and therefore having a digital currency will just be cleaner for the environment.
And the rich would pay their taxes with that. It won't be to stop your purchases when you've been naughty and doing naughty podcasts.
This is why
ultimately, I think
it's why I'm bullish against all this stuff, bollocks, because I don't think the government can actually do what they think they want to do.
I'd be more worried about the US doing it. I'd be more worried about the US or China, and then us rolling out their system over here.
That's what I think is going to happen. It's not a case of each individual country creates their own. It will just be a copy and paste of somebody gets the system to work, and we've seen the digital one working because it's stopped many, if not millions, of Chinese people from doing certain things. Essentially, the individual countries end up paying the country or the developers that get it right.
Yeah, or if the US or China is the top dog at that point, we'll just go with their system, and it'll just have the like fork, which is the UK. So you're right, but I'm just gonna
slap a new logo over it, don't you? If your nation flag.
Yes, the UK version of slave coin. What's also interesting in the article is it references FTX. So the bank's decision to forge ahead with the project comes after turmoil in one crypto market, FTX. One of the biggest crypto exchanges collapsed in November amid allegations of fraud. And then it goes on to say later in the article, despite its similarity in name to Bitcoin, it is not a cryptocurrency. I'm like, it's a digital money. Isn't that a cryptocurrency?
Yeah, they should be saying that it is. But it's one backed by government, and therefore it's safe. Therefore,
but it's also saying relation to FTX, which I think it wants to tie to Bitcoin by mentioning it. I'm kind of like going, do you realize that FTX is a company?
Yeah,
in the fiat land where they were meant to be audited, but they weren't by Gary Gensler. Yeah. Whereas Bitcoin is an asset. Two different things.
Yeah, which it all feeds into it, doesn't it? It's nice that every single time they want to mention Bitcoin, they just also mention FTX, which just obviously just plays into the hands of us going, well, FTX was a fucking government-run company anyway, designed to scam and designed to fail, just so it could diminish Bitcoin and epically fail in such a fashion that it is so outlandish that you don't barely even need to explain what FTX is. You just need to throw the name in and go, that's what Bitcoin is. And everyone goes, whoa, I realized that was a real scam. That was real big. It's really convenient that you guys have that now to throw in every time you mention Bitcoin, go, and that's what FTX scammed on. And was like, oh, I heard about that. But don't worry, Bitcoin is coming and it's going to be ace. You go,
well, you interest issue, Rishi, can't you?
But I would expect them to be hiring 3,000 people and in spending, 3 billion,
10 billion. Something which is going to underpin the whole of the economy. It needs big spending. Not, we're going to do this in under $1 million.
Even track and trace, right? Like track and trace was only part of the pandemic spending. It wasn't all part of it. So if you're going to redo the entire fucking currency, you should be spending 100 billion on this. This is nuts. But
isn't it ironic if they spend that money, they hyperinflate the money of fiat even more?
Yeah, because you know what? I've just realized, it's just clicked in my head now. The reason why is that we're having a WEF coin, right? We're having a global coin. So all these little
WEF coin, a picture of Klaus in his bikini on the beach.
Yeah. So
all the Darth Vader outfit.
Yeah. Yeah, the little 5-year-old boy sucking him off. Because so all these individual currencies.
Dalai Lama.
Fucking lick my tongue, little boy. It's just a prank. It's just a prank, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these countries, I think, doing their own CBDCs is just, it literally is just a false flag. It's just them just pretending to do a thing.
Yeah, while we're spending $1 million, whereas in fact it's going on elsewhere.
Yeah, they're centralizing all their wealth into a single place.
Could make
Because
sense.
they don't want UK, America, France to all have their own CBDC. They want a global CBDC. So that's where the real investment's going.
Right at the end, it's quite a good comment from House, which I don't really respect. The House of Lords have come out with this. So the project survived a skeptical report in January 2002 from the House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee, which concluded that a digital pound was a solution in search of a problem. It's not really. They know exactly what they want to do with it. The problem is they want to put the plebs back in their box.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that guy from the Fed. He was one of the senior employees said, what advantage are you going to get? You can do all this with PayPal. You can do it all with, I can't remember the name of the other American company. You can do all this already. You just choose not to.
Yeah.
You want helicopter money, you can do it. You can drop it into people's bank accounts with chaps.
I think I've seen this numerous times. When they're running out these type of initiatives, you get certain people that are inside the government sphere of influence that aren't quite fully briefed up on the scam. So they actually say the same arguments as us and go, what the fuck are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. And then a couple of weeks later, they get brought in line and they don't ask those questions anymore because it's, of course, it doesn't make sense. Of course, it's a complete scam, but shut up.
Yeah.
Talking about people that should shut up. Actually, no.
Not yet.
We've got your. So Never, we've got a story next. This is yours, but I couldn't find the link for it. I don't know if you actually linked it or.
Yeah, so when you, it should, when you click on Finextra, that was the link. Does that no longer take you to it?
No, it's just a bunch of articles on there.
Yeah, okay.
Can you remember what your article was, or should we skip it?
We could talk about Ryan Reynolds investing in Canadian fintech Nuvo. It's about the IMF.
Yeah, it was effectively the IMF, to your point, we're engaging with dozens of countries on CBDCs. So I believe that that's where the whole centralization of whatever CBDC that people begin to use, it'll be like, scrap your individual projects, just do it with us, as in the IMF.
Yeah,
if I can find it.
That's perfect. Because it actually does. It's weird because obviously I couldn't read your article, but weirdly I almost came to the conclusion myself there, which is of course, one of these weird 3-letter organizations that are non-elected but global and somehow have power over every government in the land, even though no one really allowed that to happen. So the IMF is a perfect one. They are the ones, right? So it wouldn't be the WEF, it would be the IMF. They are in control of the financial kind of global stability of the world. So that's where the money will be funneled into creating a global CBDC. So they'll probably have a load of failed attempts at a local level, at a country level, and go, oh, look, see, it doesn't work.
Well, they started in Africa, didn't they, with Nigeria, and they're not interested.
But I think if anything, all these little things are just them just trying it out.
Oh, they'll learn lessons and they'll try it in like Sudan or Nigeria or Ghana or whatever. Try it again and they'll tweak it and then they'll have enforcements and they'll work out how to get it in.
Okay, so this was just 5 days ago. So the IMF is here we go, publishing a handbook, a CBDC handbook, amid growing demand for its assistance. So they're claiming that countries are asking them for the assistance, and are engaging with 30 countries investigating in digital currencies. So over 40 IMF member countries have approached the body for technical assistance on CBDCs, with questions ranging from objectives and design choices to pilots and analysis of macro financial implications. There it is. In the end, I'm sure it'll just be, right, we've taken in all of your queries and questions, we've rolled out what it should look like, and here you go. Do you worse.
Yeah. So we're fucked to get Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I just think if this gets in, we really, really, really
Not
are
if,
fucked.
it's when.
Yeah.
The
next couple of years are going to be these failed local country rollouts, and they're going to go, oh, it didn't work because you're racist. So it is the global one, and you're racist if you don't pick it. And they're going to they're going to have a hell of a lot of carrots and sticks to push you into the global one.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, you're not made to travel, you're not made to go to the, because they're going literally, I honestly think the part of lockdown and all those tests around, vaccination status and stuff about, can you go in this place? Can you do this? Can you travel? They were testing that to go, right, well, now you can't travel, can't go out, can't buy dinner unless you pay it in this currency. That's what they're going to flip to. And they were just testing it. And this is what we're going to move to, which is, if you don't have this version of the CBDC, you can't eat out. You can't pay for your flight. That's what's coming. It's gonna kind of be nuts, but just get your Bitcoin, because the problem is, once you start getting paid in CBDCs and this bollocks, they will not let you convert it to Bitcoin. That'll be a certainty. So
yeah.
And
anyhow you could, then yeah, it'd be the classic fuck you. You might get some free CBDC, and if you can convert it somehow, get it off.
It's really getting scary. That I honestly think the next 5 years really depends on whether Bitcoin becomes the standard, or not enough people get their money out and we end up being enslaved in the CBDC, and Bitcoin is only useful on the black market. That is where we're going. Because if only a small subset of people have Bitcoin, that's only useful for those people, because everyone else has all their wealth locked in something else. So this really could be the important 5 years where we either unlock the population or they get locked into this. Because it's going to be kind of crazy, right? Because at the moment, like, how do you buy a Bitcoin? You need a bank account. You need to buy it from exchange. If you get locked into paying into a CBDC that is not allowed to buy Bitcoin with it, like, how do you buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, rather than killing Bitcoin, you put a walled garden around it so you can't get to it.
Yeah, you just go, because climate change and racism. And, everyone goes, okay, I don't want those things. You're like, well, fucking don't do those then. And you're like, okay, I'll just buy my bug burgers and I'll buy a penis to go over my vagina, and that's, yeah. But anyway, our next story is another fucking fiat bollocks thing. And the video is a bit long, but I think I'll play it. If I play it? Yeah, I'll play it.
Now we have in Europe this threshold. Above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the grey market. So you take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail.
So you go to jail for spending your own money if they don't control it. That's coming here. Tulsi Gabbard has spoken out against it. She, of course, ran for president, served in the House from Hawaii, and joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker.
This is so dystopian, you'd hate to think it could ever come here. You think it might?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just the latest effort by those in power in our country who are intent on undermining and taking away our own freedoms and liberties. This central bank digital currency is about government-sanctioned surveillance and control. It's about them being able to keep track of every single thing that we purchase, whether it's a stick of gum or an automobile or anything in between. And so if they have all this information and data, which they will in this system, then where does that lead? It gives them the power to decide, okay, well, hey, we don't want to allow you to purchase certain things, or we may deem it necessary to freeze your overall account. This power and what they can do with it, it's not something we have to imagine. We've already seen how Democrats in Congress, Elizabeth Warren and others, are pressuring credit card companies to code and keep track of any purchase that's made at a store that sells firearms. Why? So that these private companies can then say, hey, this person is purchasing, I don't know what they deem is kind of the threshold, but they will then report that as suspicious activity to law enforcement, and then expect law enforcement to take action and go after the purchases, legal purchases that a private person made. So this all comes back to how you open this. Once we give up our economic autonomy, we no longer have freedom. Once we allow someone else to control our wallet, they then control our freedom.
Do you think people understand what this means? It'll be sold, as always, as an effort to push back against terrorism or international financiers or crime or whatever. But do people understand on a gut level what could be coming?
I don't think they do. And it's understandable, because if you listen to what the government is telling us, like with all of these other things, whether it's the Patriot Act or the Restrict Act, they're doing the very same thing with this, saying, hey, this is for your own good. This is for your convenience, to make it easier for you to conduct transactions, when in fact they are giving themselves all of the power, taking it away from us, undermining our God-given rights and freedoms in the Constitution, because they want to be able to control us. They want to be able to control we the people.
So nicely put. Tulsi Gabbard joining us tonight. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Tucker.
But it's another example. It's fucking terrifying, right? So obviously this is, the head of the European Bank just flexing about how easy it is for them to limit the spends of over.
You mean the head of a European bank who was done for fraud?
yeah, good old Lagarde. And almost like bragging about how the amount of money that can be transmitted is got to be below €1,000, and everything can be traced. And if it's over that, then the name and the purpose has to be told. But the beautiful thing is, because that's in the fiat world right now, but in a CBDC world, it's so beautiful because we get to do that for every transaction. And she seems to be selling this as like, oh, this is a positive of CBDCs. This is why you should want them. And you go, what are you talking about? Why does my government want to know about every single transaction that I ever do, who I send it to, who it comes from? Fiat is now, or like cash is now dead. There's no cash payments. This is the surveillance state, right? This is everything we've said. This is the conspiracy. But here she is in a 2-minute, 57-second video, pretty much confirming every conspiracy theory going about CBDCs, yet she thinks she's selling the benefits of CBDCs.
Unfortunately, I couldn't watch this, but I guessed what it was from the title. I tried, but for some reason, the video didn't load when I looked at this. My kind of question was the €100 cash limit. Has it actually been implemented? Because when I Googled it, it looked like it was in the works, but just not implemented yet.
I think it's 1,000. Yeah,
1,000.
1,000.
Has it been?
Yes,
is it live?
Yeah. Well, she says it is. Yeah, she says it's live. So anything over €1,000 is KYC'd and AML'd in Europe.
So I suppose the kind of question is, why would you believe or want anything which a fraudster's trying to sell to you? And if you don't believe she's a fraudster, just go and read her Wikipedia. It's all there. Like, this is not someone who you can trust.
But she looks like my grandma, and I trust my grandma. Her name's Christine. Christines don't lie.
Yeah.
I don't know how to rebut that.
Well, I don't either. It's a difficult one.
Let's trust Granny Christine.
But I guess when you've got all these people, like we've gone through today's pod of Jamie Dimon, head of the world's largest bank, saying Bitcoin's bad, don't buy it, do this. Then you've got Christine Lagarde. Next week, I'm sure we'll have Janet Yellen talking about these things, and do as what we say. And then you've got your own government creating a CBDC. To the average normie, there's so many voices telling them that Bitcoin and anything else that is outside of the system is bad. They're going to follow.
Yeah, and they can't read the code. They just see it for what it
Correct.
is. It's just a load of gobbledygook that just looks really complicated. And all they want is the takeaway. So what should I do then? And the takeaway is, don't buy Bitcoin, trust government, everything's going to be fine. We got you. We might need to move to a slightly different version of fiat, and that might involve you taking a 95% wealth cut. But don't worry, it's all good. We got you. We got you. Everything will be fine. That's what they're being told. And that's what the majority will go with because they're too worried about who's going to win the latest Love Island episode. Because that's what they've been trained to do, right? They're like rats in a cage, running after some cheese. And the cheese is, who's going to win Love Island this year? That's what you should care about. And in reality, the water you're being fed is like the money that you're earning. You should be worrying about what you're drinking, not the cheese at the end of the maze, because that's a lie. And it's not good.
We've got a breaking news story, and then we've got our last story. So the breaking news story is that Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, has said that if the regulations within the US don't become clear soon, that he is prepared to move Coinbase. Now that's pretty big, considering that it's the US's largest exchange, and of course it is one of the largest exchanges, period. Which means a lot of jobs in the US. It means that the US potentially slows down in terms of its adopters. I mean, there are others, of course, the likes of Kraken, who we've mentioned before, and there's Swan Bitcoin, I know are US based, and as well as others. But this is huge.
Yeah, the quote that I've seen in the article, it says, I think if we don't see regulatory clarity emerge in the US within a few years, we'll have to consider investing more in other parts of the world. So I think it's been taken and slightly clickbaited to go, Coinbase are leaving US, da, da, da. He didn't say he's leaving US. He's just saying we'll invest more in other places. So and then checking Brian's Twitter feed, he was in the UK yesterday looking at the UK regulators. So he's clearly doing the rounds, and I think he's looking for tax benefits. And I think, to be fair to Brian, like, even though he is a massive fucking shitcoiner and I hate his guts, he does also want to be independent of government. And I don't think he wants the type of government oversight that the US government is trying to do to him. And this is what I've said on previous pods. I think he's being pressured to give, so many back doors into his business for the US government. He's going, at the moment, no. I don't care what you're threatening me with. At the moment, it's not strong enough. to let me give you the access to the data and to the levels of controls that you want over our business. I'm saying no. So he's going around the world trying to find somewhere more friendly. But who knows? He seemed to be super positive about the UK. And, we laughed about that before we even came online. It's like, what are you doing? Like the UK and the US, like the only difference.
Stay away from us.
The difference between the UK and the US is 3 years. That's it. Like the US, whatever they do, the UK follows 3 years later. It's just nonsensical to move your business to the UK to flee the US. Like if you're going to flee the US, you need to flee to somewhere that is outside of traditional regulation and that is more sensible, more independent, more self-sovereign, that some very small independent state that you can just run a business legit and go boom. And if US customers have to do a load of dumb shit, then you got to do dumb shit. That's what your government says. But for our default business practice, you don't need to do that. This is our kind of core business practice is one thing. Americans have to do another. UK people have to do another. It's on you. But overall, I'm positive about this story because it's good to see Brian going around looking and actually putting pressure on the US, going, this is bollocks. But my gut instinct goes, it's not going to go anywhere. This is a little bit of it reminds me of Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey, and the guys that run the social media companies. When they tried to stick two fingers up to the US government, they just smashed them to pieces. And when we will sue you to the fucking end of days, we will split up your companies, we will regulate them to hell unless you give us what we want. And we ended up with a very heavily regulated social media network, and that is basically controlled by the US government, as exposed by Elon, if anyone was ever in doubt, once he bought that company.
You sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
This sounds completely unproven.
Even though the Twitter files prove everything, but yeah. I'm also a bigot. But
And a racist.
Yeah, a homophobe. Yeah, but yeah, I would like to see. I honestly think this is going to be one of those little things that exchanges do, and then what we're going to end up seeing is all the exchanges pulled in front of Congress and charged with a load of things that, like, because this is the good thing, right? When they pulled the social media companies in, they didn't pull them in for like influencing elections and all that kind of stuff. They brought them in just for, oh, there's too much racism, like misinformation. Actually, no, it was privacy. The key thing they got
it was
privacy. It was you're losing everyone's data. That you need to prove to us you're never going to lose anyone's data again. And they basically charged them with so many things around privacy that they ended up, ironically, totally evading or invading everyone's privacy on those networks by giving all that data to the US government and letting them just search for it. And I don't know if you've seen the latest interview from Elon with Tucker Carlson, but
No.
He confirmed that the US government had access to everyone's tweets, everyone's DMs, everything on Twitter was accessible through an API to the US government, open. No request, no nothing. So one of the first things he did was shut that down. I went, what are you doing? And he's at the moment he's in that he still admits that he could, if he wanted, look at anyone's DMs. He goes, I don't, but I could. So what we're rolling out in the next month is encryption that then goes, if you click that on, even if I had a gun to my head, I couldn't look at your DMs. So it looks like...
Was that an update, do you think, in the terms and conditions that people just seamlessly click yes, as in prior to Elon taking over, and then obviously after the takeover, they just rolled it out to make that backdoor closed.
Elon closed it himself. There's no change of the T's and C's.
Okay.
And there were no change of T's and C's when it got opened.
I guess it may be just a system update in terms of like, just a normal update of Twitter.
Yeah, well, it's their end, right? It's obviously how you use Twitter and the app that you have. You think it's what you like any sensible person would think is that it's private, right? It's like your DMs are private, and really you would hope that even the admins at Twitter can't read your DMs. You would hope there'd be some level of encryption between you and them that would go, you know what, they're private messages. So no matter what happens in there, it's private. You'd hope. It isn't. And Elon has categorically said, I can read all DMs. Elon said that. And he went, and also, before I took over, before I switched it off, the US government had an API to read all of the DMs. Everyone on Twitter. So there you go.
Yeah. I think that's definitely got to be our thumbnail.
But what's the last story of the week? Oh, fucking NFTs.
Bitcoin magazine. Yeah.
I read this and I felt a bit sick.
You get a real copy as well. But anyway, go on, Sinead. What's the story?
Well, Bitcoin magazine is launching its first ever ordinals collections of covers. So the collection features one-of-one inscriptions of the first 23 covers ever printed by Bitcoin magazine, representing the publication's journey from its founding in 2012 to Bitcoin's 10th anniversary in 2019. So you'll be able to get the historic covers, but I believe also digital, right? Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, well, yeah. So basically, they're auctioning off the front covers of the magazine, which go back right the way to the beginning. Which, ironically, right? So Vitalik Buterin, Jesus, it's been ages since I even remembered that guy. But obviously, found Ethereum now. He was one of the founders of Bitcoin magazine. So right back in the day, he was one of the founders of Bitcoin magazine. So Bitcoin magazine goes back really, really far. So yeah, so what they're auctioning off is, unfortunately, I don't even know why you do it, like, is the digital version of the front cover, but also a physical version of the front cover as well. And then supposedly digitally, you could say you have the front, the original front cover, but as we know, it's a fucking JPEG. Who gives a shit? Someone has one of the first versions of the printed version. For me, that has value. If someone told me, "Oh, I've got the NFT," I go, "Oh, thanks for telling me you're retarded."
It's worthwhile mentioning that the Bitcoin magazine that they publish, it comes out like once a quarter, so there'll be 4 a year. And these magazines go for thousands. Initially, they are just around about, I think, either $10 or $25 each in terms of the magazine. But I remember seeing on the website when I went to the Bitcoin event back in October, I think it was, that some editions are now gone up to $600 or even up to $1,000, and then the earlier editions are even more as well, because they are in limited supply for the physicals.
Yeah,
Still an NFT.
I can't see a lot of people buying stuff either, which is good. I didn't think, because I must admit, when I see this stuff, like, the only reason I shoved it in the agenda was, number one, as a finishing article just to have lols about. But to go, I am interested in this stuff a little bit, right? There's a certain
the articles are good.
There's a certain part of me that still would want they were a physical copy of the Bitcoin magazine that had a cool cover, user some artwork, Who knows, right? But I ain't paying silly money for it. And then, then I see the volume on this website. I don't know how long the volume is over, but it says 3.7 Bitcoin, which, is, what's that, 100K or so? And so that's the volume. Because it's not nothing, but it's also not a lot. So I don't think it's got a lot of traction, really. It's just, but look, because at the end of the day, if I wanted a Bitcoin magazine cover to go on my wall, this is a great place to go and just go right click, save, print.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not going to buy it. I don't give a shit if I own it. It's going to be on my wall. It's going to be a physical copy. And then everyone that I bring into this room, I've got to go, oh, by the way, I own that. That's my one. And then everyone's going to go, what do you mean? Like, oh, I paid a blockchain 20 grand to own that JPEG. And in reality, I'm never going to say that to anyone because I'd be too embarrassed. I'm just going to go, I just printed it out and shoved it on the wall. That's what I did.
I didn't realize that there's a link through to the auction site. So I'm just having a quick look, and none of them gone for much, and a lot haven't even had bids on them.
No, some of them had stupidly high, I think, request money.
All the starting prices were 10 Bitcoin, which
no one.
So what's that? $300,000. But the top selling one is the first edition at 1.25, which is still a fucking lot of money.
Yeah.
And even some of them are like 0.2, so a fifth, so $6,000 for a JPEG.
Yeah. And at least you do get a physical copy, but
but that physical copy is like $25.
Yeah, but you can't get it now. It's a version 1, right?
Yeah. I'm just looking on the website. Yeah, so version 1 or issue 1 is $2,100. And then
they're actually selling it on the website for $2,000.
They are, they're selling it on the website in terms of the physical magazines. Jesus. So 1 and 2 are 2,100. And that's it. Your average price of the normal magazine when it comes out is $21 for the magazine.
Yeah. Well, it just shows that it's interesting, right? But for anyone that is in Bitcoin, there's just no way a proper Bitcoin is paying this shit. Literally, if you like one of the covers, right click, save it, and print it out yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, when I went to the conference, Bitcoin Magazine issue 26, which is currently still available for $21, I picked it up for free. So yeah, I have that. So maybe one day it may increase to the price of 600, 1,000, or 2,100.
Yeah, that's the thing. That the issue 1 is always. I would love an issue.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
it's like having issue 1 of the Bible or any book that's big. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to have an issue 1, but I wouldn't want the JPEG. I don't give a shit about the JPEG. I want a physical copy of issue 1 of the magazine. But I'm not asked, and I'm not going to pay $2,000 to get one now. Even if I know it's going to be worth 20,000 in 10 years, I'm like, I'd rather the Bitcoin. I don't want a magazine. Just no. So
that's it. All right. Well, I am going to take us out because that has been Pod 94 Bumper Edition, because we missed last week, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ. myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and this is No Show. No Show.
And I would sell my Bitcoin right into this rally. Into this rally. Into this. Sell my Bitcoin rally.